Good morning. Chag Hashem Sameach. We're going to be reviewing Hilchot Pesach this morning. And of course, if you have questions, put them in the chat or feel free when I get to the end of each section to ask questions about it. But if you don't mind, I want to just get rolling because there's a lot to cover in a short span of time. And I'm going to put on the screen some of the notes that I've used in previous years. And I'll try to talk to you a little bit about some resources and some ideas for consideration as we get ready for Pesach, just to refresh our memory. The question that comes up, I always try to start with a little Dvar Torah before we get into the Torah on the halachic side, to do something in the world of sort of to think a little bit about the concepts in question and what they mean for us. Particularly, we talk about chametz, like suddenly we're going crazy trying to get rid of chametz and make sure that we don't have any in the house. Not to buy products that contain even the smallest minute quantity of chametz within them. So why? This question was being asked for many generations, and different people gave different answers to understand it. Clearly, the Torah itself outlines in several psukim in Parshat Bo, that's the third parsha in the book of Shemot. It already tells us in the second book of the Torah the prohibitions against eating chametz and against owning chametz. And the prohibition against eating and owning chametz doesn't just refer to chametz that is actually leaven, i.e. Sourdough or an actual loaf of bread, but actually includes any admixture of a food that might contain chametz within it. Also, that's called tarovet chametz. Also, we're concerned not only about the consumption of chametz, but also even gaining and deriving benefit from chametz. That's also prohibited on Pesach. So we try to avoid that. We must avoid it as well. And it carries a rather stiff penalty. Having chametz on Pesach on purpose is considered an Isser Karet. A person, God forbid, would be, spiritually speaking, excised from the Jewish people. We're going to be going in now to Pesach 3335. It's 3,335 years. It will be 3,335th anniversary of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And one of the Rebbeim who I quote fairly frequently in this slot in our Sefer Malachim Shir that takes place every Thursday, other than now, between now and Pesach, but it'll resume again after Pesach. I quote Rabbi Yaakov Meidan, the Rosh Hashiva Shivat Har Etzion, who likes to point out that sort of the way that we measure time ought to be really from Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's what the Torah itself does. It tells us always in reference to Yetziat Mitzrayim. All times, once the exodus from Egypt transpires, are measured that way. It's in the second month of the second year, means since the exodus from Egypt. Just for our consideration, the Torah is given in the third month of the first year of leaving Egypt. The Jewish people leave Mount Sinai, the base of Mount Sinai, in the second year, in the second month. There's a whole description there. So the question comes up, why is our relationship to chametz, why did the Torah set it up to be so absolutely strict? Why is that? And this question was asked of the Radbaz, a medieval commentator who was asked this question, Rabbeinu David ben Zimra, and he was asked, Manishtana, chametz bepesach, mikol yisur shibat Torah. Manishtana, like the Manishtana, why is this prohibition on chametz different than all of the prohibitions in the Torah? The Torah is so strict about it. Again, we have to search for it. We have to burn it, destroy it, nullify it. The Chachamim add that you have to check even in crevices, cracks, in different places you never even go. You can't be violating the Isser of Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzeh, not to own it, not to see it if it's in your possession, not to, as being in your possession, not to eat it, not to cook it, right? There's just so much going on. As opposed to other prohibitions where you're not allowed to eat, let's say this week's Parshat Hashavua, you're not allowed to eat pig. Last week, you're not allowed to eat chalev and dam. There are different foods that one is not allowed to eat, various ways the Torah describes these things being prohibited. Kilei hakerem, if a vineyard, the fruit like a grapevine gets mixed in a field together with a sdei halavan, with wheat, or grains, that's prohibited. That's called kilayim. That's a forbidden admixture. A lot of forbidden things the Torah says you can't eat or that you can't have benefit from, but it doesn't have such penalties and such heaviness associated with them. If you want to argue, as some do argue, that the issue with chametz is that the rest of the year you're permitted to eat chametz. It's only prohibited for these 7 days in Chutz La'aretz, 8 days and change that you're not allowed to eat chametz. So maybe that's why it's so strict. Okay, but there are other examples in the Torah of that as well. A Nazir, someone takes a vow not to drink wine. So other than when they've taken their vow, normally they're allowed to drink wine. It's just they took a vow to be a Nazirite, a Nazir. Okay, fine, but it'll eventually, there'll be something they'll allowed to eat. It doesn't carry such penalties. So he answers as follows. He answers here. We don't have time to read the whole thing inside, but he basically says, we find that there are 3 conditions that make the Isser Chametz so strict. Number 1, that there's a prohibition on, and all 3 of these are true when it comes to chametz. Number 1, you're not allowed to get enjoyment from it. Number 2, there's a punishment of karet. Number 3, that the rest of the year we actually do eat it. Chametz is the only one that checks the box in all 3. And since it has these stringencies, the Torah was very strict about it in other ways. It's sort of additive, and then the Chachamim added more chumrot as the Torah had done. Chametz on Pesach is what's called davar sheish lo matirin, means that eventually you'll be allowed to eat it, right? Before Pesach you could eat it, after Pesach you could eat it, and therefore we have a principle that's something that is what's called a davar sheish lo matirin that will eventually be permitted. So then it's never nullified. You can't say that it's not. Remember, we have a principle in general in kashrut. If you had a drop of milk fell in a chicken soup, one little drop, and you had 60 times that volume of soup, you'd probably call the rabbi anyway. But the rabbi will tell you that's bitul b'shishim. It's going to be nullified in 1 part to 60 parts. That's not true for chametz. For chametz, 1 part even to 1,000 would not be bottled. Why not? It would never be nullified. Never. Why not? Because a davar sheish lo matirin. It's a davar, a chametz on Pesach is a davar sheish lo matirin. And because that means that it's only prohibited for a limited period of time. After Pesach, the chametz is permitted again. Not what you're destroying, but let's say, chametz that you'd buy before or buy after, not that you had on Pesach itself, but because of that, maybe that's why it's so strict. He says, well, this could be one of the reasons. But then why do you have to look for it and search for it and destroy it? And why? He says, I really don't understand why you're going so crazy. Okay, I get it. You shouldn't own it, but you have it in a hole in the wall in your house. You have to get rid of it. Why? And he says, I'm really trying to understand, what it's about. He goes on to explain, that even further, the Chachamim say, if you have chametz on Pesach, it's like you went against the whole Torah. I mean, you're not allowed to have it, but it's so strict with such penalties and such emphasis, right? So he even asks, he says, it seems like it's almost worse than idolatry. If there's idolatry, someone just asked me this question the other day, he quotes even the name of the Rambam. If there's idolatry in the land of Israel, and we control the territory and all things being equal, so we should rid the land of Avodah Zarah. But in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, if we see idolatry, you don't have to destroy it. If we can't own idolatry, but you see it around, okay, it's not a good thing, but that somehow chametz, wherever it is in the world, it's like you have to pulverize it and destroy it and burn it and get rid of it, nullify it. It's stricter even than idolatry. So it's just strange. So he says, I need another reason. I have to understand this on a deeper level. So look where the red dot is over here. He writes the following. Ve'al kain. We'll just read from here. It's sort of the punchline. He explains why is chametz. He sees it on a very symbolic level. Ve'al kain ani someich hamash amru Rabbeinu zichrono livracha, but midrashot. I'm going to rely on what the Chachamim taught in the various sources and the midrashim in their works. Ki chametz bePesach remez liyetzer hara. Chametz on Pesach is a hint to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination. It's symbolic. It is the external rendering of like the evil inclination that inheres within the human soul. V'hu se'or shebe'isa. That's the leaven that's in the dough, proverbially. V'lachein kalei yagaresh to ha'adam me'alav. Therefore, a person is symbolically showing, I've externalized it, sort of I made chametz into the metaphor for yetzer hara, for the evil inclination. It's everywhere. It happens because of lassitude. How does chametz happen? Fermentation, leaving something in a passive way. That's what we're trying to recalibrate when Pesach comes around. Now, that's not to say now that we don't need to follow the halacha, God forbid. It's not to render it just a whole metaphor. We follow the halacha. That's the mitzvah. But he's trying to understand what's the rationale, why, how does it relate to us? And that is the source of lachain. Therefore, you have to destroy it, pulverize it. And more than that, person should be searching, like you're searching the holes and the nooks and the crannies of the house for any a crumb of chametz that's there. So too, all of the hidden places of thought. Even a smidgen of the yetzer hara, if it's not nullified, that it will not be nullified. It won't be nullified just in terms of the aggregate of other thoughts and elements of the person. Rather, you have to get rid of it. All to say, chametz is a mitzvah. It has a lot of stringencies. In the end, the Radbaz basically says it's a symbolic act that I'm doing that's meant to have an internal process, internal impact for myself, how I should have a certain self-concept that it is the symbol, it symbolizes, rather, it's externalization of the notion of avodah zarah. Shelley, I know you have a question. I'll take it, but please, I apologize in advance. I'm going to answer short. We got to get to the practical part. I just like to open with something for us to think about. Please go ahead.
Okay, my question's not practical. It's got to do with equating this with fasting on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is also, you're trying to get rid of your yetzer hara. You're trying to atone for what you've done. There are certain stringencies, but it's not like Pesach.
Good. You're contending with your yetzer hara in a different way.
Drink and take medicine.
You're contending with it in a different way, right? Okay. But on Yom Kippur, you could say the Seder of Yom Kippurim is actually involves the internal process. But on Pesach, perhaps the preparation is exactly the spaces around us as a symbolic externalized, right? The Jewish people coming out of Egypt are ridding them. So you can take the people out of Egypt, you have to take the Egypt out of the people. So the Mitzrayim that they take with them, the culture they take with them. So part of that is the ridding of chametz. By the year they left, they didn't have an Isser chametz, right? There was no prohibition on eating leaven the year they left Egypt. Doesn't seem to be part of the Pesach Mitzrayim. But Pesach Dorot, the Pesach of all generations later, is very much about that. So a point well taken. And these are two polarities, different ways of contending with these realities of the human condition, if you will. Again, no one should mistake anything I'm saying here. I'm not trying to explain away. Well, Rabbi, I took care of it. I take care of my evil inclination. I don't need a Torah to tell me to do the mitzvah. God forbid. The mitzvah is the mitzvah. The Rabbah is just trying to understand, why is it so different? So that's what he's trying to explain. Let's get into some practical elements. The pre-Rosh Horesh checklist. I'm really using the template I've used every other year. You could probably find a video from a previous year online. If you went to a class, it's pretty similar, but just sort of get us in the frame of mind to get ready. So some people order matzah and they order wine. Now's a great time to do it. Don't wait. Kol hakodem zocha. Ma'od chitim. Please, as part of your preparation, think about people who may have less, who need a little bit of help. There's Ma'od Chitim of Greater Chicago, fantastic organization. Our shul collects funds through the Rabbi's Discretionary Fund. You go on to ortorah.org. You go hit donate on the drop-down menu under type. It says type, drop down. It's a Rabbi's Fund, Ma'od Chitim 5782. With thanks to Marla for setting that up for me. So you give that way, you give a check, whatever it is, Ma'od Chitim on the memo line, and make out the checks to congregation or Torah. Help other people. Kashrut guides, the shul already has in person. The OU guide, the CRC guide, excellent guides, volumes now of information. You can also find these online. If you go to I sent you the links just a couple of days ago, and it's kedai to use the links on for these websites. They have search engines. They're terrific. CRC also has another website called askcrc.org, askcrc.org. And there's a little search engine like Google. You just type in what you need. And underneath it, there's two boxes, year round and Passover. You click Passover, it'll tell you anything you need to know about products, about different elements of Pesach. The CRC, I think I sent it out a couple of years ago, even has Rabbi Eisenbach Shalita, who's in charge of all food service in Chicago. In terms of hashgacha, he has videos, how to kosher things in your kitchen, how to do it. Practical, very, very practical. So I urge you to pick up, you can come by the shul to pick up the guides. A lot of people get it in the mail. Alternatively, you can find them online in longhand as a PDF or as searchable pages in the website. There's an authorization form to enable me to sell chametz. So you can print it. I sent it out already. For people who are not comfortable in coming into shul building, that means people who don't go to get groceries, they don't go to anything, they don't go to work. So we'll figure something out. I'll meet you in the parking lot. I'll come to your house if I have to. It's a good thing to take care of this. Fill out the form, and let's do the kinyan. The kinyan takes less than 30 seconds. Coming into the shul, any of these time slots, it's less than 30 seconds if you filled out the form. Literally, we lift the pen. I give you my pen, you lift it up, I take it back, we're done. And I take that, and you hand me the form in my hand. That's the whole thing. So please take care of it, and no reason to wait to the end. Every week there's going to be other slots. Please take care of it. If you're going to be away, you do need to make sure there's a neighbor who has access to your home. The whole point of it, and it's a very complicated thing with the actual sale. You're not doing the sale when you fill out the form. You're just authorizing me to sell your chametz for you. I go to the sale representing everybody, and all the rabbis come with all their files of all their pages, and we sell to a non-Jewish person, but they have to have access to the chametz. If you're going to be out of town, there's no way to get to the chametz, so then you're not really selling it. The person doesn't have access to their chametz. In your home, the places that are being sold have to have some kind of a way that they're closed off, that the chametz, there's a little sign on it that says chametz do not open. There's a piece of tape over the refrigerator or the section in the refrigerator that has products, or the freezer, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but you do have to cover it and label it as such. And then on the form, you fill out where the chametz is being stored. If you're going out of town, you do not have to do much by way of cleaning your house. A basic cleaning will suffice, and putting things away, obviously. But if there's any chance you're going to be returning on Pesach, and a person doesn't always know what's going to happen, then you do need to clean those parts of your house that you may need. The other parts, you're just not going to go into if you have to come back. But so it says on the form, with the exception of, you just list off a hallway, a kitchen, a bedroom, a bathroom, whatever it's going to be, those places you do have to check. You do have to clean also your car. If you own a boat, or whatever it is, you have a vacation home, these places all have to be either checked or sold. And if you're going to be using them over Pesach, they do need to be cleaned. That's how it works. Products change and get more complex year over year. And we'll talk about a couple of products. I'm sure you have questions about them. You're welcome to ask. Anything having to do with a medicine product, I'll remind you again, it's page 3 of the guide. So I don't have to read you the whole thing, but it's called Medicines, Cosmetics, and Toiletries for Pesach. So this is about everything we do with Pesach. And it begins, signed by Rabbi Rees, Rabbi First, and Rabbi Zucker. It was originally signed by Rabbi Schwartz Zatzal. Now it's, Rabbi Rees is the Av Beitin. Schwartz, unfortunately, no longer with us, but he was the one already who signed this letter, and it's a continuity. If it's a pill or a non-chewable tablet medication, with or without chametz, that one swallows, it's permitted. It's not candy-coated pills. That's an exception. But if it's a vitamin or a food supplement, that doesn't necessarily fall into this category. If they give me a call, send me an email, I'll look it up. I'll do the research if we have to. We'll find an alternative. We'll find some way. If it's a liquid or a chewable, so if it may contain chametz, that already is a little dicier. Then it depends a little more what the circumstance is. I have to figure that out. You have to ask me these questions not the day before Pesach. Sometimes I have to call companies and try to do research and talk to experts who can help us find sometimes an alternative, which you have to coordinate with your doctor. I'm not prescribing medicines over here, but you have to figure that out. There are a lot of over-the-counter medicines, and some of them have chametz. Some of them have kitniot considerations. So kitniot is not chametz. You're not allowed to eat kitniot if you're Ashkenazi. but there are circumstances where there may be heterim, dispensations for a person. Kitniot, again, is legumes, right? Is rice and legumes, basically. And there's a list of what those are. You can also find it in the guide. So you'll consult with me. We'll figure out what's what for each of these items. When it comes to cosmetics and toiletries, blush, body soap, conditioners, creams, eyeshadow, eyeliner, foundations, ink, lotions, mascara, nail polish, ointments, paint, shampoo, and stick deodorant are all permissible for use on Pesach. Permissible. Does not matter what the ingredients are. Varieties of cologne, liquid deodorants, hairspray, mousse, perfume, shaving lotion, sunscreen, and wipes that contain denatured alcohol should not contain alcohol, or if they contain alcohol, denatured alcohol, or if the alcohol, unless the alcohol is known to be free of chametz. But any product that's manufactured in the United States can be used, regardless of whether the ingredient list says on it denatured alcohol. So you look at the back of your, whatever it is, your hairspray, your liquid deodorant, if it says denatured alcohol, but then it says made in the United States, then you could use it, no problem. Lipstick, mouthwash, and toothpaste, which contain chametz, should not be used. So which of these things do not contain? So I'm happy to share the list as it becomes available. In terms of mouthwash and toothpaste, it'll probably be the same list as last year. I don't think there'll be any radical changes. Search your email for last year's list and the year before and the year before. There's no radical changes, but I will send out an updated list as soon as it becomes available. It's just not available yet, or at least I haven't received it yet. As far as lipstick, the guideline used to be just wipe off the edge of the lipstick. So I see here now that, they're reminding us, it shouldn't contain chametz. I don't know how many lipsticks really contain chametz in them, but the point is you put it on your lips and then you eat food. So something for consideration. Again, happy to try to help as much as I can. And as you look through these guides, it'll give you the information about, everything from what kinds of countertops can be kosher for Pesach, which kinds cannot be counted. We'll get to that shortly. Every year they put in the Tfilat Kalim guide with a checklist for CRC. It's excellent. It'll tell you it's good to keep for the whole year, what you need to immerse if you buy new and which you do not need. Other guidelines, other things that you need to know for this year, they're all in the guide. Let's get underway with some of the pieces here. But let me take some questions before that, now that I mentioned all the products. And you'll tell me if you have general questions. If I can answer them now, I will. And if not, I'll take it down and I'll try to research it for you. Okay. Not seeing anything in the chat and nobody's unmuted. So here we go. Cleaning for Pesach. Let me say a word about cleaning for Pesach as a general idea before we get to specifics. Cleaning for Pesach, I just made the point here with the introduction from the Radbaz, is very serious. No question. But it does need to be reasonable. And there's a difference between cleaning for Pesach. I just had the conversation with someone yesterday. That is not the same thing as spring cleaning. Min hanei shnei hatzdadim in both directions. So what do I mean? Cleaning for Pesach does not mean that if a person has a shelf high up in a closet in some room in their house where they've never brought food into the room, and in the closet they have, I don't know what, old photo albums and shoe boxes and I don't know what with shoes, that they have to go crazy to unload every single thing that maybe there's chametz in there. If you know you never go in there whatsoever, a mild cleaning will suffice. It's not like you're going to have a bagel hiding up there, probably. Yeah. Now, I'm not talking about in your kitchen. I'm talking about you have a room somewhere where you do not keep food, and it's a bedroom. Maybe you bring some food in there. I don't know. But you have a room somewhere. You just never go in there. I'm not saying not to clean it at all. I'm just saying you don't have to fine-tooth comb to the point where you're thinking, I have to go through everything in every drawer, and I have to go through. Hold on. Maybe there's places where you never go. And if you're that kind of person who's generally fastidious when it comes to issues of food and where they go in the house, so you have to clean. But a general cleaning will be enough. That's why there's the nullification of the chametz. That's why, right? So just to keep that a little bit within reason. There was a minute people had, they were cleaning the ceiling in the house on Pesach, Erev Pesach, and people were cleaning off the places on the door handles where a screw, like where the threads are from a screw, because maybe chametz got in there. I just don't understand why a person would do that. The chametz is adhering to it. You have dirty hands and you're touching the walls and the ceiling in your house. I don't know. If you have something that's out of reach and you have old dishes, you haven't used the dishes in 5 years, you never touched it. So someone went up there and was eating cake and spewed out cake in there. It's not so logical. Now, lower down in your kitchen, you have cabinets where you keep glassware, plates, etc. Okay, should be cleaned out. You want to make sure there's not chametz sticking to plates and utensils, and of course the utensils drawer. In many families, they go in the middle of the meal to get an extra utensil, something. Okay, so that's logical. You have to clean that. We'll go through things now, but just I wanted to state that at the outset. Also, on the other side of spring cleaning, Pesach cleaning is not spring cleaning. You could say, well, spring cleaning means so I'll have boxes of cereal in a cabinet and I don't have to clean it. Well, wait a minute. If it's boxes of cereal, they either have to be sold or they have to be emptied out or they have to be thrown away. You can't keep that on Pesach, even though it looks organized. Still, it's chametz. You can't keep it. So just something for consideration. So the general rule for most of the things we're going to talk about now is that you need to clean the object, the appliance, whatever it is. You need to wait 24 hours and then you need to kosher it. And there's different processes for koshering. Now, I want to remind you, this is not true for everything. I'm going to go through, and unless I say otherwise, this is the rule. You clean, you wait 24 hours, and you kosher. There are exceptions, but let's go into it a little bit. The refrigerator. Only cold things go in the refrigerator generally. So that means that you need to make sure, though, that you clean the shelves, you clean all the compartments, you clean the underneath part of the refrigerator. It's behind the shelves and the lowest drawer. If you take out the lowest drawer, there's a lower part there, usually under the drawer. That does need to be cleaned. In terms of a refrigerator, many people have a built-in refrigerator unit that's like set back and it's actually in the wall. I'm not really sure that a person has to move it out and start schlepping it and throw out their back, etc. There probably isn't any chametz back there. If there is, it's crumbs. You do have to try to the point where that's the halacha. If you have a hole in your wall, I don't doubt you have this. If you have a hole in your wall, you have to clean out the chametz until the point where your arm could extend into the hole. So I would use that. You do have to vacuum underneath the refrigerator. If there are sides to the refrigerator, you need to do that. If you can get back there with the hose from a vacuum cleaner, yes, you should. But I'm not suggesting it means you necessarily have to move the refrigerator. If it's, again, built into a wall unit or it's attached to the wall, certainly the chametz didn't get back there by itself. It's very unlikely. And if it is, it's going to be an infinitesimal amount. And in that infinitesimal amount, that's what the bittul will be for, because it's not accessible to you either. So you clean the shelves out very well. The shelves includes the different gaskets, rubber gaskets sometimes. And there's usually in a refrigerator, it's the ones I've seen, it's not just plastic on the drawers, sometimes there's the metal trim, or the shelves in the refrigerator have like a metal band, sometimes at the end of each of them. Whatever it is, that does have to be cleaned. It does take time. Many people cover the shelves in the refrigerator. They could do this for one of two reasons. Number one, it's a minhag, and there's nothing to sneeze at if it's a minhag. So you put some butcher paper there, put some tin foil, put whatever it is, newspaper if you need to. It's a minhag to have that in one's refrigerator. I can't argue that it's a must, but if sometimes you put hot soup pots into the refrigerator, so then already the shelves do need to be covered. You don't have to kosher it with spilling boiling water on it, etc., because usually they're made out of the shelves could be glass, and there are seams between the glass and the metal. That's not really going to work. But really, to clean out the whole thing, okay, it does take time. The sink. If your sink is made of enamel or porcelain, even though you have to clean out the sink, obviously, including the drain, so you do not have any recourse except to cover it. You can use contact paper. You can get an insert. If you made Pesach before, maybe you have one from last year. You may get an insert that has a cutout. I don't know if you go to Kol Tuv or whatever the store is. I don't know if Target sells such a thing, or any of the kosher stores, other stores, if they have the it has like a little hole on the bottom for the drain, so the water can drain out. But that you do need to do that. You can't put kosher Pesach things into a porcelain or enamel sink. There's no way around it. If you have a metal sink, you can kosher a metal sink. How do you kosher the metal sink? With iri mikli rishon. Iri mikli rishon means pouring from a primary heat source. Primary heat source means a kettle that you pull right off the fire on your stove and you're pouring on every inch of the sink. It means a kettle that you plug in that has water boiling in it and you pour it on every inch of the sink. What kind of kettle do you use? You could use a kettle. Ideally, it should be a kettle that's really a kosher Pesach kettle, but it could be a kettle that's not kosher Pesach if it hasn't been used in 24 hours. If it's totally clean and hasn't been used in 24 hours, you really could use that. Iru mikli rishon. The assumption here is that the kettle is used only for water, not for hot chocolate, not for bouillon, not for other things. And you're going to then be pouring directly out of the spout in a stream that is going straight out. This is time consuming, obviously. You got to keep boiling up the water because the water has to be boiling as it's being poured out. I recommend less the use of a pot, because if you're using a pot, unless you know what you're doing, could be very dangerous. And certainly for the edges of the sink, it's not just the bottom portion of the sink and the basin, but it's the areas all around the rim that gets very messy. So leave out towels on the floor, towels around the sink area. The backwash, I think it's called, also, it's going to have water spilling all over it. You might want to line it, whatever it is. Thus, the faucet also needs to have the boiling water poured on it. If you have one of those hoses that attaches, so you need really to pull out the hose and pour the hot water over the hose and over the spigot part itself. Now, if you have a regular faucet, so you do, the best you can. I do not believe you need to really replace the spigot itself. There are those who maintain that. Then you have to clean it up for crumbs. I don't know how crumbs get in there. I've never heard of it. I don't understand how it could be. There's water pouring through it out. So the crumbs migrated up and in. And again, I just don't, doesn't compute for me. You pour the hot boiling water over it. If you have the kind with a hose, so you extend the hose, leave it sitting in the basin of the sink, pour the hot water directly over. It'll hit the spigot in that way. If you have a spigot that's facing downward and it doesn't rotate up, so you could just take a little bit of the water, you splash it up away from you, obviously, so it'll hit the bottom of the spigot. That's more than that you don't need to do. Now, I'm just reiterating, for the sink, just like I said before, first you need to clean it. You need to wait 24 hours without using it. And then you kosher. Those 24 hours, what do? If you have another sink, you use that. If you have a bathroom sink, you use that. 24 hours, it should not be used. And then you do the koshering process again. It's called iru mikli rishon, pouring from a primary vessel. Again, primary vessel means something that came off the heat. So it can't be that you're going to take a kettle and pour it into a measuring cup. The measuring cup is called klisheni, a secondary vessel. That's not good. Has to be that the water heated up in that primary vessel. It's still bubbling. That's the definition, still bubbling. And then you pour it out on all aspects of the, I'm up here still, of the sink. The drain catcher really should be replaced if you can, because it's metal with plastic and a rubber gasket, and there's too many seams and pieces there. You really should replace it. Sponges, it goes without saying, have to be replaced. If you have a sponge that's generally clean, it doesn't have chametz in it, which is unlikely, but if you do have that and it's a nice sponge, you don't want to do away with it, you could put it away with your chametz-dik things. You have to clean it and then put it away. You don't have to necessarily throw it literally in the garbage. Most people do dispose of them once a year, at least, and they get a kosher Pesach sponge. So that you would have to do. To clean the sink before you wait the 24 hours, so you could use the chametz-dik sponge to do that. You just have to clean it with a cleaner, obviously, and rub it everywhere, including the spigots, including the taps. Everything has to be cleaned, wait 24 hours, and everything has to be koshered with the pouring from the boiling water onto all aspects of the sink. If you have an enamel or porcelain sink, you still have the spigot, and the taps themselves are obviously metal, or should be metal, so that doesn't have to be covered, but it does have to have the iru mikli rishon there anyway. Counters. So typically, the anything that's in the guide, they did the research, it'll tell you the names of all the different types of counters. You can look it up for yourself. It's like right here. I was looking at earlier today. Give you the list of all the countertops, how to kosher, what to kosher, The koshering process, same thing. You have to clean it very well. A lot of people just don't want to be bothering trying to kosher it. Just cover it. Cover it with contact paper. Cover it with tin foil. Cover it with whatever. Heavy plastic. I think I've mentioned in previous years, years ago, when we Sorry, I seem to have lost everyone. I don't know what happened. Everyone there still? Okay, I see people again. Hi. Okay. I don't know how long ago did I lose you. You go to one of the places, a Home Depot type place. They'll cut for you in very, very thin, like it's kind of like a pressed wood that has a laminate on top of it. Just ask them. It's like a board of a sort, and it's like a cork board. I'm not even sure what it's called. Relatively inexpensive. You just take the measurements of your counter, go have it made. They're very thin, so they can stand up in the back of a closet during the rest of the year. And you take it out, you put it out. It's ready. It's very simple. Page 28 and 29, all the countertops information. What has to be covered, what can't be covered. All right. If it's something that has cracks in it because it's wood, then you have to cover it. If it doesn't have cracks in it, you don't have to cover it. You can just you can do this Irim Kli Rishon. What's Irim Kli Rishon? Same thing. So I mentioned granite, metal, formica. Formica is plastic. Some say you cannot kosher plastic. My rebbeim say you can. CRC, I'm pretty positive, says that you can. Yeah, they do. Okay, so you could do also Irim Kli Rishon. You're pouring from a private vessel. Same thing I just described with the sink, you could do for the counter. Incredibly messy, potentially could destroy if you have wooden cabinetry under the counter, could be an issue. So just think carefully on it. And in that case, if there are seams between sections, the formica, whatever, that you do have to go with like a toothpick and make sure there aren't crumbs in there. You're going to put food down there, etc. You do have to clean that out very well. Again, there's all sorts of kinds of countertops, too many to list, from acrylic to Zodiac and everything in between. That's actually a kind of countertop. You do need to find out, just look online or get the guide, page 28, 29. It'll tell you what you can buy. Formica is laminate, is all these different things. So, okay. Cutting boards should be replaced. A mixer, a blender, a food processor. You do need new blades and bowls. It's very complicated otherwise, because each of the blades is attached to plastic. There are seams there. There are crevices. It's very hard to clean that, and it's not recommended. Bowls, same deal. Even though the bowl might be all made of plastic, there are seams and pieces and things going in and out. So recommendations to change it. But the mixer, blender, food processor, in terms of the base, you have to figure out, can I really clean out the inside and all around it very well? Is there a vent? The vent invariably gets crumbs and things in it. You vacuum it out. If you, I don't know what, you try to tool it, you got to look in there with a flashlight if it's possible to do it. Some people have told me they tried to like disassemble it. They take the back off. I don't know how handy you are. Proceed at your own risk. I don't know if that's a good idea, but something for consideration. Dishwashers. The dishwasher, different poskim say different things. Different kosher agencies say different things. They say different things in different years. I'm not even sure what they're up to this year. I generally have told people not to kosher the dishwasher. There are too many seams, too many pieces. There's a drain. There's gaskets. There's all different things. I know there are those who maintain that you can, and I say each year, I was matir it with extreme rarity. If you're the kind of person, and it happened once, someone came to me, Rabbi, we wash the dishes before we put the dishes in the dishwasher every time. We don't allow a crumb to go in. We don't put dirty dishes in. We clean them and then we wash them. I was thinking again, it's like, okay, then why do you need a dishwasher? You might as well wash the dishes for sanitary reasons, whatever, hygienic reasons. They then put it in the dishwasher. I said, if you're makpi to do that the whole year, so look, if you have if the inside of your dishwasher is porcelain, you cannot kosher it. If it's metal, you can kosher it. If it's plastic, you can kosher it. There's still an issue with all of the racks and the runners and all of that. Again, different agencies say different things at different times. I'm less enthused with it. It's a week of your life. And if you're able to dispense without it, I think it's much better. Again, if you have a particular circumstance, just give me a call. I'm happy to talk it through with you. But generally, I think it's asking for trouble. I don't really see how it's so likely to do. If you are trying to clean it, you do the rubber gaskets on the door. You have to do all the rubber gaskets on the inside. There's the drain catcher. There's certainly the receptacle where the utensils go. All of these different parts have to be cleaned. And there's the wands themselves, both the top and the bottom. People tell me, well, I have the shelves. I don't know why that's better. If you have the drawers, I don't know why that's better. Seems to me it's just more of the same. And then the runners also, the wheels are on these runners for the shelves to go in and out. So that also has to be tooled, essentially. It's a big job. Okay, again, if you have an issue, you want to call me, I'm happy to talk it through. The oven. So the microwave oven, you cannot keep the plate. The glass plate should not be kept. I am aware that there are those who want to maintain that maybe the glass plate itself, because it could technically be kosher if it's made of Pyrex, which it generally is heat resistant, that maybe you could just dip it in boiling water. I hear the case to be made. Rav Aaron Kotler held that way. I believe Rav Schwartz held that way. I just tell people generally, you have too many spills and things going on with it, I don't think it's a good idea. You just take it out. I think it's just simpler. You can kosher your microwave, but it's here again, it's also a job. Or you're going to have to, the way to do it is to take a styrofoam cup, put it inside the microwave. Again, after the microwave was cleaned thoroughly, after you waited 24 hours, then you could kosher. So how do you do that? You need steam. You have to steam it up. You put a cup of water in and you let it go for as long as it needs till it steams up, till the sides of the microwave, the door, the window, all that, it's all steamed up, or at least it's hot. Better to be steamed up, actually, it really needs steam. Then you need to wait till the water cools down and you move the cup over, because under the surface of where the cup was, that didn't get koshered. That's supposed to be koshered. So again, I say replace the plate and the covers. So people have covers, milchik fleishik, you have to cover the food, use it for one, you have to cover the other kind of food. There are internal vents. There have to be vents inside it. You need to check those very, very carefully before you do the koshering. So that's part of the cleaning process. Again, it's a laborious process, but if you want to do it, you can do it. You check the internal vent. In recent years, personally, we just don't even use the microwave anymore. It just became too much of a hassle to try to fix it and clean it. Again, there's a gasket. All that needs to be cleaned. A conventional oven comes in several flavors. I'll take questions in 2 minutes, but conventional oven. If you have a self-cleaning oven, relatively simple. Self-cleaning oven is one of the exceptions to the wait 24 hours rule. Why? A self-cleaning oven means that it's getting to such a high heat that it's actually burning out whatever is inside the walls of the and the racks of the oven. That's self-cleaning. There's usually two modes of self-cleaning. You want the super duper one, the higher one, not the minor one. We're talking about a heat that is so high, 700, 800 degrees, it's burning it out. You don't have to use any cleaner. There's no easy off, anything like that. You just need to clean it as best you can and then put on the self-clean feature. It's easy, but I will warn you, I've said this every year, safety warning. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Sometimes self-cleaning ovens, if you haven't used them in a while or it's never been used, you want to make sure to call the company, make sure there wasn't a recall or anything like that before you press that button, because it's super hot and it could be very dangerous. If you have a non-self-cleaning oven, you can also, of course, kosher it. You do need an easy off, a caustic cleaner. It includes the shelves. Everything has to be cleaned very well. What you're looking for in the non-self-cleaning oven, you want to make sure that there are no raised stains left on the floor of the oven, including ashes. You want to get it off, whatever it takes. The non-self-cleaning, you want to use the caustic cleaner. And then after the 24 hours, you're going to kosher it by turning it to its highest heat. And you're going to leave it at its highest heat for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So that's the koshering process with the shelves, etc. Inside, that all works. If you have a broiler pan, you cannot kosher it for Pesach. You're going to have to really replace a broiler pan. What's the difference? The broiler pan has the food goes directly on it. If you want to kosher a broiler pan, it's very challenging. You essentially need like a blowtorch. It's not really going to happen probably, and you shouldn't try to play around with blowtorches. It's a bad idea. I didn't mention in here next to oven, I should have said a warming drawer. I don't know why I still don't have it here. A warming drawer. You can kosher a warming drawer by cleaning it out very well, and then by holding it open about 1 inch. So you could put one of those sterno little, whatever it is, the little heat cans that you can buy. And to use those, you burn it out. You let it go. And as soon as it burns out, you're basically good. Obviously, if there's tinfoil inside your warming drawer, you need to to replace it. You can't keep it. And in terms of what you're gonna do in terms of the koshering process, again, it's going to depend on all sorts of different things. If you have a metal hot plate, you can kosher that. The metal hot plate, you just make sure it's clean, plug it in, let it get to its highest heat, and that should be fine. And then after that, you cover it with tinfoil, you're okay. The glass ones cannot be koshered. A glass hot plate cannot be koshered. If you want to cover that with tinfoil, it's really at your own risk. And we'll get to that in a moment. We get the stove tops. I'm not up to that yet. Barbecue. It's possible to kosher your barbecue. Not so easy. And it's already over 10 years ago. Someone insisted they were going to do it. They asked me how to do it. I explained how to do it. And they called me back and said, Rabbi, I ruined my whole barbecue. If you buy a cheap hibachi grill, like one of these, a small one, you do need to take the grates to the mikvah, tevilat kelim for the grates. But you just take that with charcoal, maybe a lot simpler than trying to kosher if you have a fancy barbecue to do that. But if you want to do your fancy barbecue, it's possible. You need a bag of charcoal briquettes, and you need to basically fill most of the cavity of the barbecue with the charcoal briquettes. And the racks, you're basically essentially lining them with charcoal briquettes, and you're lighting the whole thing on fire. And then you're closing it, and the heat's going to accumulate like crazy in there. I don't really recommend it. That's the truth. But if you want to do it, that's a way to do it. It's just not so practical. Stovetop grates. If you have a gas range, you turn on each of the burners. Again, you clean it. You wait 24 hours. You turn on each of the burners, and you put a kettle or a blech on top of it. The kettle could be a chametz dika kettle or a chametz dika blech, as long as it wasn't used in 24 hours. And you, again, clean and waited 24 hours. You put it on top so it spreads the heat around, or even a pot. You could use an empty pot for 10 minutes. That's really all you need. So it gets hot. The electrical ones, you're turning it on until it's red hot. Each of the burners should be on for about 10 minutes or so, but recognize that an electrical stovetop grates, oftentimes it doesn't go so easily because it oscillates on and off, on and off. So it ends up being 25 minutes, a half an hour, on, off, on, off. It's going to be red hot for about, in the aggregate, 10 to 12 minutes, but you need to get there. So it could take a while. And it's the element itself is heating up. So you don't have to put a kettle or a blech because you don't need to spread the heat around. It's the heat. Obviously, everything on the stove top itself needs to be cleaned well, and really ideally should be covered. It's not that it's impossible to kosher it with boiling hot water, but here again, you're dealing with either electrical components, gas lines, or some combination of both. You're pouring hot water all over it. The water's seeping down. It's got to go somewhere. They're not necessarily waterproof. I don't really recommend it. You're not going to do a great job. You'll do a great job. I won't do a great job. So I generally just cover it. I clean it very well. And I cover it with silver foil, the whole thing. And you can buy these disposable catchers that can go into each of where the burners go as well. The stovetop grates, by the way, another way to kosher them, if you have a self-cleaning oven, it's at your own risk if you're putting it inside. You could put it in the non-self-cleaning on the highest heat. It's possible, but it might be simpler just to do it this way than to start taking them all off and stacking them up and figuring out that they're burning hot and taking them out. Just leave them where they are. Again, they have to be clean, wait 24 hours, and then you do this. And then the stovetop itself needs to be covered. Glass top stoves are a problem. Corningware tops are a problem. Inductive heat tops are an issue. Ideally, they really need to be covered. But as people have explained to me, it'll mostly, it's at your own risk. It can cause it to break. So there are various solutions. One solution is that you do the best you can. I don't know what else to say. The CRC seems to say that it can be koshered, and the glass stovetop, because they maintain that since it's a heat-resistant surface, if you pour boiling hot water, you turn it on the highest heat, you have the elements, the burners, and also you're going to pour boiling hot water. So, okay, what can you do? You did the best you could, and you were able to get it on every inch, and there's no chance that it's going to break the glass because it's made for that. Yeah, okay, you can make a case that this works, but again, it's not clear to me entirely how it goes. some people buy, and I don't know how cost effective this is. They buy metal discs that they measure the diameter of each of their burners, and they buy metal discs that are about 1/4 of an inch thick, and they have to ask at the store, make sure they're heat resistant, they don't melt, on each of the burners. And that's what they use. The pots are elevated; they don't actually touch the surface of the glass top. So in a case of a glass top, so the CRC says that each of the burners has to be heated up for 30 minutes, not 15, 12, 10, 15 minutes, 10, 12, 15 minutes. That should be really 30 minutes. Why? I don't know. I think because the alternating of the on and off of the red, hot, and not is different. That's really the best you can do. The CRC does say that they also want you to cover with foil afterward the areas like the knobs and the areas between the burners and the areas behind the burners. To me, that's going down the road again of having it break because it's glass, and apparently the whole point has to be uncovered. So that's why I'm not really recommending those. CRC says you could, because you could do the burners. I don't disagree with that, but the surface, you're going to cover it with foil in between the burners. You still have the problem if you put a pot down whose diameter is wider than the burner and you don't have it elevated, it could create contact with the surface of the glass that's beyond the burner, which is not getting as hot. And there, if there's liquid mediating between the two, you're going to have a big problem. So I don't recommend it. Another thing you could do is some people buy portable stovetop burners that you plug in. They're electric, and they use that for Pesach. Not so convenient and obviously an expense, but better than messing around, possibly ruining the glass top stove. Okay. Okay. Let me pause here actually, because we just talked about a lot about different elements of the kitchen. You tell me if you have other parts that need discussion, or we can move on to the next thing. Questions, comments, issues? No? Okay. The can opener technically does not need to be changed for Pesach, but the minig is if you can go out and splurge to buy a cheap one, an extra one, it's better. Why? Because it keeps going in food. Sometimes the food is chametz, just better. So it touches the food. Minig is to do it if you can. We lean, my family will lean in that direction. Again, it's Pesach, so better to err on the side of caution. The CRC does hold that the can opener does not actually need to be immersed because they think it doesn't touch the food, but I think it's something that stays on the counter. Usually if it's like an electric one, otherwise it's one in a drawer, but it keeps getting washed with things. So it's, I think, better to replace. Don't forget the vacuum cleaner bag and the garbage cans, indoors and outdoors. They need to be emptied out and cleaned out as best you can. If you have like a big garbage pail and it's like impossible to get to the bottom of it, like the ones that we get from Skokie, if you live in a house, so you pour a little bleach in there, should be good enough. It's the best you can do. The vacuum cleaner bag, again, doesn't need to be changed before Pesach. So put a checklist to take care of that. In terms of materials that can be koshered, let me say the CRC has a fair. They do this fair every year. I mean, not during COVID, I guess, not during the first year of COVID, but typically they do have the fair, and everyone is invited to participate. I believe it's on April the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. This Sunday before Pesach. And it's at the CRC, it's at the HTC at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., the Chicago Rabbinical Council Pesach Fair. They do Hagalat Kalim. People get in line with their, whatever it is, their bechers, their Kiddush cups, their different pots, different things. They have people on site. They'll inspect it. They'll look. They'll tell you if it can be koshered, and they'll do it for you right then and there. And it's usually, it comes with knife sharpening and different other things that are happening at that fair. So without crevices, stone, wood, stone, metal, and plastic. We talked about that before. Again, there are caveats here. If it has cracks, crevices, seams, different things. So it has to be eyeballed. Usually someone who knows what they're doing has to look at it. And I'm happy to answer Shilas on it. Again, CRC holds you can kosher plastic, but typically if it's a spatula, retails for $3.22. We're not going to kosher that really for Pesach if we can avoid it. Again, it depends on someone's economic circumstance. Obviously, in the aggregate, a lot of such utensils that are plastic does come out to hundreds of dollars. You can't afford to have 2 sets. So again, it goes person to person. Crystal, if you have a dire need, if it's glassware that was not used for any hot items, only cold items, so it's possible to kosher them. But here again, it goes case by case, and that's where you fill a bathtub with your glassware. You immerse the glassware in water, no bubbles, no air pockets, and every 24 hours for 72 hours for 3 days, you keep replacing the water, the cold water. You leave it to soak. But again, it's only if it's used for cold chametz, and it's with regard to crystal. Things that you can't kosher: china, earthenware, Pyrex, Corelle, Corningware. I mentioned already. Pyrex, again, I mostly tell people you should not kosher it, but there are those who maintain you could kosher Pyrex. Why don't we generally kosher china, earthenware, Corelle, Corningware, and glass? The answer is because we're worried. The Gemara says you're worried that you're not going to really immerse it in water for long enough because you're worried it's going to pop. It's going to explode. Shemapaki. It'll come apart. So therefore, you're going to give a little dip. It's not really going to be koshered, and that's no good. These other items, you're not as concerned. They don't react to the water in the same way. You're willing to immerse it and hold it there for whatever it is, 15, 20 seconds, however long it would take to get hot. So with these items, not. So the halacha is we don't kosher these things. Again, Pyrex is a bit of a debate. If it's glass that you use for bouillon, soup, hot chocolate, whatever it is, it's either dairy or it's meat if you're Ashkenazi, and it's a done deal. If you wash it with chametz and hot water in your dishwasher, and by the way, and someone just pointed out, and that's correct, if it's glassware like you have crystal, but you end up putting it in the dishwasher, you really can't kosher it for Pesach. I'm talking about glassware. It's like water glasses and wine glasses that are so delicate that every time you have to wash it, you're hand washing it in the sink. So in that case, you could, each item, then you could kosher it for Pesach. But if you're putting it in the dishwasher already, that you can't really do anymore. So that's koshering of different materials. And by the way, of course, plastic was a debate because it's a new material. So like, what category is it in, right? We generally maintain, the CRC maintains, many poskim hold that it can be koshered. It's not on the no list, and you're not concerned it's going to melt when you put it into the water or that it's going to explode. So therefore there's no concern. Here again, the same thing with these items. If you're doing the hagala in your home, you have to keep them unused for at least 24-hour consecutive hours before you kosher it. And I'm not sure many people like koshering things in their home. If you're interested, go on the crcweb.org /Passover. They have the videos there. You can see how to do it on your own stovetop. It can be messy. You need a pot that's big enough to accommodate the item, ideally the whole item, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes you can't fit the whole item in. But if you can put a part in, hold it there using tongs, obviously. The tongs have to be koshered, obviously. So you have to boil up the pot, dip in the tongs. The tongs have to be tongs that have not been used in 24 hours. They have to be obviously spick and span clean. And then you have to rotate whatever. You might need 2 pairs of tongs. If it's a plate, so the plate goes in, so you have to rotate it. It's whatever it is, a knife. So you have to do half the knife and the other half the knife. You could drop it in straight, but there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. Number one, at some point, every part of what you're koshering has to get immersed. Number one. Number two, not even if it's not at the same time, as opposed to going to the mikvah, where the items have to be immersed in a mikvah, the whole thing has to be submerged at the same time without a chatzitza, without interruption. That's not true for a hagala. It could be with interruption, but at some point you have to get everything. That's one. Two, the water has to be boiling the whole time. So if the water already has cooled down, and if you take, 13 pieces of silverware and you pour them all in at the same time into the water, it's going to cool the water down. So it's not helping. So you got to put 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, 4 items, then you take them out and you put more items, right? That's just how it works with the boiling. It has to actually be boiling in order to kosher. The pot that you use there also, a kosher Pesach pot, not kosher Pesach, just has to be a spotless pot that you haven't used in 24 hours. If you have joints and connecting parts, they really have to be disassembled. And that's where we get into the soup, the pardon the pun, where we're looking at the handle on the pot. Sometimes just can't be koshered. It's too challenging. The way the rivets are, the way it's connected, the way the silverware is made. It's 2 parts that are fused. Oftentimes it just can't be koshered. Again, shilas should be asked. If there is dirt, tarnish, and rust, you do have to remove it. Anything that's raised, if you run your hand over it, a stain could be okay. You have to see what the discoloration looks like. So any item that can be koshered that involves, and this is just sort of more conceptual, if it involves heat but not direct fire, it's not a barbecue grill, but it's your oven, or it's a pot that has boiling water in it where you make soup. So it either needs hagala or libun kal. Libun kal means it's going to a high enough heat. You have to do whatever you're doing to kosher it is basically recreating the circumstance for how it got to be that in the first place. So hagala, libun kal, those are the two ways. Hagala means immersion. Libun kal means it's going to a high heat. If it involves direct heat via direct fire, a broiling pan or a toaster rack, you cannot kosher your toaster for Pesach. No chance. No chance. Way too many crumbs. And there's parts of mechanisms and parts of the machine you can't even get to. No way. It's a small space. That doesn't work. If it involves direct heat and fire, like a toaster oven, like a barbecue, the grill itself needs libun gamor. That's where you need a blowtorch, and of course, it's very challenging. And if it's something that's cold and only for storage, or only for storage, like the crystal glasses, that's milu v'iri, where you fill and you empty out, and that's all you would need over there. Okay, so this has been quite a review. I think we got through most of the appliances in the kitchen, probably not everything, but again, if you look at pages 34 and 35. It'll tell you what you need to do for Tevilat Kalim, but a few pages earlier, page 31, it's going to give you all the different kinds of things. Again, different elements in your kitchen. Let me mention one of the things. It comes up every year. The urn, the hot water urn. So the hot water urn just depends on what you do with it. By which I mean, if you store it in a place in your kitchen, which is not near where you put hot pots down, you store it in some other location, and it just has water in it, you can use that on Pesach. You just wash it out well with soap, and that's it. It's only used for water. It's not really going to be an issue. But if your urn is on a counter where you do things, you're cutting things and moving things, you'll know, it's your house. Then you really you have more of an issue in terms of whether you could use it or not. If it's something where you do traditionally have it on the counter, some people put like their pots or their tinfoil pots on top of the urn to keep it warm. That's not going to work then for Pesach. It's more challenging. So there's what to keep in mind. Same thing with the pump pot versus the traditional urn. They're all in that category. So to keep in mind. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we didn't talk about that's urgent. Anyone have questions? You want to raise an issue before we say goodbye? Again, I'm available. You always call, email, come see me, whatever you like. But Deanne, go ahead. Just unmute yourself so I can hear you.
I asked a question online. If you're going to be away for the entire Yontif,
yeah,
and you label your cabinets chametz, and your oven chametz, and your refrigerator chametz, and you give a key, and you do your general cleaning as usual,
right?
And you give a key to a neighbor.
Yep.
What else do you need to do?
You just have to make sure there aren't like pieces of chametz lying around in an open place.
You do a general cleaning.
General cleaning.
Clean. Yeah.
General cleaning. Now, I will mention, if you have open boxes of what's called chametz gamor. Chametz gamor means bread, cereal, cake. I mean, obviously it would get spoiled anyway if you're not going to be home the whole Pesach, right? But some of these things, a box of crackers, cookies, if you can afford to, it's better to draw down those items. What are you selling? You're not just selling your chametz things that are maybe have like a little chametz ingredient in them. You could also sell chametz gamor, meaning if you have a freezer that has, bags of bagels, and then you have boxes of cereal that are unopened. You bought a case of it when it was COVID or something, and you're still nervous a little bit, so you have stored foods. You don't have to throw out all that stuff. If in the aggregate it's going to come up to like $100 value that you're selling, for some people it might be $50, but it has to be that it would be a significant loss to suddenly throw all this stuff out, right? But if you have a box of crackers and there's like very few crackers left, you should throw that out before Pesach, before you leave the house. That's better. That's better. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I got another question. Do you have to give your key to a non-Jew? No, you don't have to give your key to a non-Jew. You have to have someone in town who has access to your house. It could be a fellow Jew, could be someone, but just think of it like this. When I go to the sale, I have a sheaf of papers, and all the rabbis come to papers. So they give the fellow a box, and they fill the box with all the papers. He signs a contract. He raises up a handkerchief. It's usually a pen. He signs multiple contracts. In fact, he takes it down. He gives a down payment. He goes to part of the place where we do the sale, and he puts with a nail in a door. Puts a nail into the door frame of a closet, and in that closet there's some chametz, and that's symbolic of all the properties that he has now, taken possession of. It's the property underneath wherever the chametz may be stored, the cabinetry, the whatever. But if you tell the person, oh, by the way, you don't have access to what you own, they don't own it. So it has to be that the person has access. That's why I ask people on my forums, I write, you have to, where are you going to be? And then who has access to your home? But it doesn't have to be a non-Jew. Could be a Jew, just to be someone who could get there reasonably in a reasonable amount of time. So it doesn't have to be a non-Jew per se. And about that person, by the way, if you have an alarm system, so whoever that person is, they have to know how to get into your house. They actually have to be able to access your house. If the non-Jew looks and says, "Oh, this person has liquor, I'm making a party," that would be the most likely example. I need extra liquor. The stores are closed for whatever reason. I want to get the liquor. The person would have to pay for it. They would have to pay the full price. They gave a down payment, but they're entitled to it. It belongs to them. And if you restrict that and they have no way to get into your house, so then you can't argue you really sold it to them. It's more and more of a trick.
But wouldn't that be a problem with on Shabbat if you give it to a Jew? Your keys? How are they even going to contact them, or Shabbat or Yom Tov?
So that's why I have to have the address. That's why I say, what's the phone number and the address of that person? If the non-Jew wants to knock on their door and say, "Hi, do you have the keys for so-and-so's house?" Sure. By the way, in that case, whoever the person you've given it to would accompany them. It's going to go by themselves, would go into your house and look for the chametz and take it out and give it to them. And then have to have in mind that, okay, whatever this non-Jewish person that we sold the chametz to is going to have to pay for it in full. So that's how it works. People tell me, well, I'm going to be in Florida, Rabbi, but if the non-Jew needs it, they can call my cell phone. They can't call your cell phone on Yontif. So they're not Jewish. They're entitled to it whenever. So that's that. Okay, that's all we have time for today. I thank everyone very much for coming. I wish you a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. It should be a kosher and a happy Pesach filled with simcha and bracha and good health. And next week, God willing, there'll be a shir, but that's more sort of agadic in nature. That's on the Haggadah, things like that. You're welcome to join next week at 9:30. If you have other questions, please don't hesitate. Call, write, find me here, whatever it is. I'm somewhat hard to find sometimes here because I was running around, but by all means, be in touch. And I look forward to being in touch with everyone and to seeing you, if not next week, then certainly, God willing, over Pesach. Be well and take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Chag Kasher v'Sameach, everyone.